Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Listen, guys, I'm going to be talking today about drones, and this is earlier on in the live stream. There was a lot of people asking questions about UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, drones, drone strikes, the use of drones in Ukraine. So I just wanted to put this out as a standalone video. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the use of drones, the likelihood of drone strikes into the United Kingdom, and the future of unmanned combat. Now, I know this is going to be like a little bit of a nerdy topic, and it's slightly, it's a slightly off topic to what we normally talk about. Just for context, there has been some breaking news in the last couple of where are we? Literally the last couple of 15 minutes ago, Zelensky is requesting foreign troops on the ground in Ukraine. That's what we're going to be talking about tonight. But for now, guys, I just want to talk about the use of drones and drone warfare. Now, let me just throw a couple of things out there. I think these are kind of things that people don't understand. When we talk about drones, there's only one real use. All these drones, everything in the military is a weapon delivery system. Literally everything is a weapon delivery system. And if you want to follow that far enough to the rudimental causes, essentially you're trying to get as much gunpowder, or I guess, explosives, kaboomy stuff, to the bad guys. So that is the aim of the game. Whether it's the Tooth Fairy, Father Christmas, or the most expensive drone in the world, it doesn't matter. The aim of the game is to get as much explosives from your factories onto the bad guys as possible. That's it, nothing else. Everything else is condiments, all right? So we're going to use that as the basis for this little, little talk through. So earlier on the live stream, some people were saying, about the speeds of drones and that drones are being launched in their thousands. All of those things are true, but the context was slightly wrong. So let me just get my little, drone figurer out. So you've got quadcopters. These are predominantly, they are VTOL drones. They go up and down. They're very maneuverable. They're very accurate, all right? These things can be flown by FPV, which would be first-person view, predominantly. You get these things, which are fixed-wing UAVs. These are normally pre-guided on a preset mission path. And these will be operated by, if you're talking about the Shahed drones that the Russians are using predominantly in Ukraine, these things are set on predetermined coordinates, and they just fly on that coordinate and then hit into that building. And then you've got these things like this is I think this is an RQ-4 global. It is an RQ-4 global Hawk. The bigger ISR platforms, which is intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. So you've got. And obviously, all these drones are interchangeable. For example, you can have this one with these VTOL propellers on it, and that would be this, that would be a. So then you would have a VTOL that has a fixed wing as well. But the problem there is, once you put these motors facing up, once this thing's in the air, it just produces drag. So you get a drag penalty. Now, there are different uses of all these drones, all these systems that, there's different uses, and a lot of, and people are using them synonymously. So let's just go with these ones. I'm going to talk about these ones here. These are the quadcopters, all right? And then once I've given you guys a brief understanding of the different drones and their capabilities, because these things they operate on known physics, right? And because they operate on known physics, they have limitations. So we're talking about these ones now, guys, all right? These hang on, let me put the chat on. So we're talking about these ones, these quadcopter drones, okay? Oh, hang on, we've got Holly Sword. We've got Holly Sword from Minnesota. How are things in Minnesota? I hear the Somalians are taking over there. Are the Somalians? I don't know. What's the Somalian community like in Minnesota? So talking about these ones now. I'm going to talk about these ones. So these are your quadcopters. Now, I was just speaking to a friend of mine, and he said that some of these quadcopters have a 20-kilometer range, and they can carry a 7-kilo payload. All right, so they can carry 7 kilos of explosives. Now, I was saying, okay, so how much does something like that cost? And he was telling me that something like that would cost £10,000. So now you're looking at, that's how much these things are costing. These things are costing for one of these UAVs. Let me take that trap down. For one of these things to have the capability to travel 20 kilometers with a 7-kilo payload, that is about $10,000. Now, an average artillery shell is maybe $200, call it $500 for argument's sake. That's for a low standard one. Of course, you can get more expensive artillery shells. So now you're starting to see the price difference. So earlier on in the live stream, I was talking about the use of these, these quadcopter drones as a replacement for artillery, which they are. They're a replacement for artillery. They're not better than artillery. Artillery is still king. Artillery is still king when it comes in comparison to these things, all right? Now, some of the questions in the one of the things I said on the live stream earlier on, I said, listen, guys, these drones, they're replacing artillery. They can only realistically travel like 60 kilometers an hour, like top end 60 kilometers an hour. So if you're looking at a target 20 kilometers away at range, that's going to take 20 minutes to get there, right? Simple maths. It's going to take 20 minutes to get there. So that means you have to have one operator with their FPV goggles on for 20 minutes. And somebody came up on the chat and they said, Sean, these drones that you're talking about, they go a lot faster. They go about 120 miles an hour. But what he was talking about was these ones. These drones, which are still drones, but they're used totally differently. So remember what we said right at the beginning, guys. These ones, they're flown predominantly by, if we talk about the Shahed type drones, which the Russians are producing on an absolutely phenomenal scale. They are, guys. The Russians are producing them on a phenomenal scale. You have to plug in the GPS coordinates and they will fly on a route. They'll fly on a route and they will be automated. They don't really have people involved in that, in those drones. Once you fire them, you forget about them. They go. And they can achieve speeds very, very fast. Now, the problem here is these things are interchangeable. When people hear drones, they get some of the statistics mixed up. And, so these things, I do believe these ones will have a game-changing effect on the battlefield. Now, the limitations with these, UAVs is the limitations with those is the engines. It literally is the engines. You can't build the engines quick enough to be able to have a game-changing effect at scale. So that's one of the main problems with this. Like I said, guys, all these drones, they all work on known physics and they all have limitations. Hang on, there was somebody said something about jamming. Who said something about jamming? Somebody said something about jamming. Hang on. I'm just looking through the chat. I'm sure. Here we are. You can still jam the signal from them. So for these ones, what's happening with these at the moment? The Russians and the Ukrainians are both using fiber optic cable. And so what they're doing is at the bottom, they're attaching a spool of fiber optic cable. They're plugging it into their control system. And when that thing goes, the spool leaves the drone and you can't jam that. So that's what these guys are using. They're using fiber optic cable. And that's another one of the limitations of those things. So they're using fiber optic cable and you can't jam them. You really can't jam them. There's no way of jamming them. Yes, I asked if you may still jam the signal. So no, not when they're using fiber optics. You can't jam the signal. So, and then you've got these things. These things are in a class of their own. So these are the big things. What people, when you think about a drone, that's what we're talking about. These big, huge, hundreds of millions of dollars for these things. Hundreds of millions of dollars. And this is what lasers were made to take down. All right. So when people talk about lasers being able to take drones down, it's true. lasers will very competently be able to take these drones down. Think about how much one of these costs, guys. You know, maybe $100 million, maybe more. Like a low end, like a cheap one of these, maybe a second-hand Predator. You could probably get one for like 10, 15 million. So now you understand why lasers were in, why people put money into lasers. It was to stop those bigger drones. Now the problem is the battlefield's developed to such a state now where these things will be overwhelming the laser defenses and destroying them. And that's the reality. That's where we're going. So talked a little bit there about the three main types of drones. Yes, of course, everything needs to be in context. What I want to talk about now is something I worked on in the United Kingdom, like, I don't know, maybe 2016 or something. And it was the water companies in the United Kingdom were worried about these things, the longer fixed wing things. I mean, these have maybe 1,000 kilometer range. So these things, maybe 1,000 kilometer range. One way, obviously 500 there, 500 back. So if you're thinking one way, if you're thinking south coast of the United Kingdom, hang on, guys. If you're thinking one-way drones, south coast of the United Kingdom, you now think, okay, could one of these drones be flown over the English Channel and crash land into a reservoir? And could that drone then be, just filled with some sort of horrible chemical? I would say the likelihood is high, and certainly the capacity. Hang on. So now we're starting to look at the real threat from drones, where people, I get a lot of questions saying, Sean, are the Russians going to have a drone? Is there going to be a drone attack on the United Kingdom? I would say, and in my opinion, I would say I'm surprised there hasn't been already. So that's one of the things I've worked on. It's from the water companies. Water companies in the United Kingdom understand that their reservoirs are vulnerable to a drone attack, and these drones can land in the water, potentially secreting harmful chemicals into that water. I personally, now we are where we are in the United Kingdom, I don't think that. Yes, it could happen. Yes, there's a chance it could happen, but I think the real threat to our water supply is just people driving up to it and pouring stuff in. So I don't think the case use for that drone strike is really applicable in the United Kingdom in that context. I'm not saying it's out of the question. Now we've got these ones, these little quadcopters. So if you guys remember, right at the beginning of this live stream, right at the beginning of the video, we said, right at the beginning of this live stream, we said, what is the use? What are all these drones? They're the delivery systems, right? They are there to deliver munitions, deliver explosives to a target. That's everything in the military. Whether that is a tank, whether that is a FA-18, whatever that is to deliver something, all right? It's a weapon delivery. And normally it's explosives. So now you're thinking about these things, right? You can buy these off the shelf in the United Kingdom. You can buy capable ones like this. You can buy them off the shelf in the United Kingdom. You can 3D print. You can 3D print the parts that will attach to those things. That is the release mechanism, for example, for a hand grenade. So now the next question is, where do we get those hand grenades from? Well, I would speculate that a lot of these things are being smuggled in small boats. I think if I was a bad guy and I wanted to smuggle in these contraband, what I would actually do is I would just get a yacht. I would just get a cheap, I don't know, 20 grand yacht or something, like an old Princess 28 or something. And I would just sail that. I would just sail that close to the UK shores, maybe at night time, maybe at dusk. I would sail it, and then when I'm close to the shores, I would get my team in a rib, in a rigid inflatable, in a little rubber dinghy, and I would just send them. Do you know what? You don't even have to send people. You can have a drone rubber dinghy, right, that can send this thing into the UK shores, and that can be packed full of hand grenades. Those hand grenades can then be put onto these drones, and I do think, like, when people talk about drone strikes to the United Kingdom, I think there's a strong likelihood of these things being built in the United Kingdom with parts that you can buy readily available online, with munitions smuggled in from overseas. And I do think that is the real threat. So when people say, Sean, is there going to be drone strikes on the United Kingdom? I'm like, do you know what? I don't have a crystal ball. I have an 8-ball, and it's not that accurate. What I can say is you can buy all those parts readily available off the shelf in the United Kingdom. Like, you right now can buy all those parts, and it's legal. You're not breaking any laws. Literally, the police can come and break down your house, break down your house door. You can have all those drone parts all over the floor, and they can't do anything. It's all legal. And that to me is a huge drama. Gerald of Riviera is saying 300,000 to produce fixed-wing drone for each one that got close to Israel. Launched 2 Patriots, that's 4 million. It's good maths. Right, okay, yeah. So I think we're talking about these things now. I think we're talking about these Shaheed-type drones. It's not cost-effective to take these things down. So earlier on the live stream, I was talking about these things replacing artillery and not having a game-changing effect. They're not having a game-changing effect. Because if you've got these things, it's better to have good artillery. And what these things are doing is they're just taking the place of artillery. You know, Sean, would you like us to listen to you or watch all these ads? Guys, I have no control over the ads. I have no control over the ads. I do apologize. I have absolutely no I have no control. Listen, guys, I have no control who gets the ads. I have no control what the ads say. It's not me. It's genuinely not me. It's not me at all, guys. All right. I have no control over the ads, guys. I'm sorry. Skip the ads. Skip the ads. Oh, if you're a member. Oh, okay. Helen's saying if you're a member, you don't get ads. I don't know, guys. Look, I don't plan the YouTube algorithm. I don't plan the YouTube algorithm. It has nothing to do with me. All I can do is apologize, guys. Okay, literally. Oh, listen. It looks like it's all gone wrong. He's getting all the ads today, so I can only apologize for that. I can only apologize. Right. What were we talking about? Yeah. So earlier on, I was talking about these things, how they're replacing artillery on the modern battlefield, but they're not replacing it in a better way. They're just replacing it like for like. So these things are more accurate, but you can't fire as many of them. And that's the reality. That really is the reality. 10 grand for one of these, which is more accurate. $200 for an artillery shell, which is not as accurate. So, what do you want to do? Remember, right at the beginning of this live stream, guys, okay? All these military pieces of equipment, even soldiers, the job of a soldier is a weapons delivery method. Your feet, your boots, all you are is weapon delivery. That's literally what you do. You deliver rifles. They gave up on heavy artillery on the battlefields for rockets. They didn't. The battlefield is going modern systems now. The hit rate for long-range artillery is minimal. Okay. It's not minimal. The problem is from the Ukrainian battlefield, what's happened is, and we're talking about these now. I need to be very clear. All right? These things are replacing artillery. what the problem's been on the Ukrainian battlefield is the Ukrainians do not have basically the Ukrainians have been given Western artillery. All right, they've been given Western artillery. Obviously, you've got HIMARS, you've got other sorts of stuff, but those rockets, they're expensive. They take a while to produce. I'm going to stick with artillery just for the ease of, without overcomplicating things. So, artillery. The Ukrainians were given these artillery barrels, but they can't service them. There's no way that they can refurbish them. So after so many rounds, those artillery barrels need to be refurbished, all right? So they need to be sent somewhere, and they need to refurbish them. They need to do whatever to the inside of the barrel. When the Ukrainians got these artillery pieces, the only place that they could refurbish them was in Poland. So now you can imagine, right? On the front line of Ukraine, you've got to take your artillery all the way back to Poland to get it refurbished. It becomes an absolute nightmare. It becomes a logistical nightmare. So they're just not refurbishing the barrels. And that's why the artillery, the accuracy of the artillery has gone down ridiculously. Modern artillery is still better than drones, guys, okay? It is. Now, let me be clear. We're talking about these ones. These give you long-range strike capability like nothing else. They do. They give you long-range strike capability like nothing else, and they absolutely are changing the battlefield. Now, the limitations with these things is the engine. So this would be a fixed-wing UAV. It would have an internal, an atmospheric combustion engine, and maybe a 50cc motor or whatever. Like if you're talking about a Shahed, and they can fly long ranges. The problem there is the engine. Think about it. Every time you're doing a strike, you're losing your airplane. So there needs to be another solution. I think the solution would be to have these things fly and drop bombs. That's what I believe the solution is. That's what I believe this war will evolve into. Mark this moment, guys. Mark this video. Sorry, mark this video. I think that's the way it's going to evolve into, because people will understand that they need to get more explosives. Ultimately, that's what all warfare is. It's about getting explosives from your factory or gunpowder, whatever, and issuing that to your enemy. And the more you can do that, the faster you can do that, the better it is for your team. Sorry, I'm just jumping up. Rocketman Gaming is saying, I get past ads, download YouTube PIP, thank me later, guys. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means, guys. Download, I don't know what that is. You're going to have to, I don't know what that means. Sorry, guys, I'm just jumping up to get some of these. Can EMP? Yes, EMP can take those things out, but creating an EMP is ridiculously hard. You can have nuclear EMPs or you can have chemical EMPs. The chemical EMPs, you have to have a big explosion, basically. So it's not practical to use an EMP to take drones down. Microwaves shut down electronics really fast. Yes, they do, but the range on them is very short. So you guys can think you need these things to get really close for a microwave to work. It's like lasers. A microwave will be in a broad spectrum, and that has the ability to take things down. Yes, but you have to let them get really close, and there'll be absolutely no use on these things. You think about these things gliding in. Think about this 8-ball, right? Think about this 8-ball as, excuse me, as your microwave generator, right? You've got these drones. Somebody message me. You've got these drones gliding in on fixed wings. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if your EMP takes it out. It's still going to glide in and hit that thing. So, you know, all these things have limitations. All these things have, there's pros and cons and there's limitations. But what I'm getting at here, guys, is all these things work on known physics. A lot of people earlier on the chat were saying things and it was all right, but you need to understand the context of those things. Carl is saying, is the UK gonna get hit by rockets? I don't think so. I don't think there's any way that I don't think there's any way. You've got to understand the case use, all right? If let's just say, for example, that let's just say, for example, that good old Uncle Putin, launches his big old Orshnik. He launches his big old Orshnik and sends it over to the United Kingdom. That's going to have a launch signature, right? There's going to be a launch signature. People are going to know where it's come from. It's going to be tracked by satellite. It's going to be tracked by radar. There's going to be a return response, right? Literally, there will be a return response from that, you know. The real threat, I think, in the United Kingdom is from these things. You know, literally these things. All you have to do, guys, all anyone has to do is go onto Google and search drone parts UK. Hobbyist drones UK. And you can literally buy all of these parts to make a weaponized drone in the United Kingdom for hobbyists. And it's all easily available. There's tutorials online. And that is the real threat. Anyway, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to jump on to do a quick live stream and talk about drones because I know there was a lot of questions earlier on. Tonight, I'm going to be talking about the breaking news as of a couple of minutes ago. Ukraine war live. Zelensky is requesting foreign troops on the ground in Ukraine. That's the headline. That's the headline, guys. That's what I'm going to be talking about later on today, guys. Later on today at 8 o'clock. For those of you guys who are following me on TikTok, I will start the TikTok about and Anthony Joshua has been injured in Nigerian car crash with 2 others unalive. Oh, I hope he's okay. Yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about later. For those of you guys who are following me on TikTok, I will be on TikTok and I'll start the TikTok about maybe half an hour earlier. I'll just be milling around and I won't be drinking my coffee because I'm not allowed to drink coffee on TikTok because I get restricted. Certainly wouldn't be able to drink beer. Anyhow, that's what we've been talking about today. I'm going to close this down now. You guys have been fantastic. You guys have been great. Oh, hang on. I've seen a video on X of Joshua crash. One of the drivers. Wow. Whew, God, you don't want that, do you? Sean, don't give the enemy any ideas and intel from your videos. Listen, guys, what I know, the bad, you know, everybody knows. Everybody knows anyway. Everybody knows anyway. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I will be back on this evening. Yes, I will. 7:30, I'll start this, I think, on TikTok. I'll then be on you guys where I can talk more. I can talk more freely on YouTube, but I don't have to. I mean, honestly, like if I was on TikTok now, this would get me banned. That would get me banned. I'd be banned on TikTok for that. So I just like, you know, sometimes I just like having a coffee. Anyway, I'm going to close this down now. You guys have been fantastic as always. I will see you guys at 7:30 or 8 o'clock, whichever platform you're watching. I'll catch you guys later. Have a great Monday.